Welcome to Cookie Pocket. This podcast is about film. I'm not counting the episodes like everyone else. This is episode 7 of season 2. Close enough.
Wow,
32. Yeah. It's 32. Okay.
It is episode 32.
Okay, 32 total. And today we will be discussing Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, an animated feature attached to the animated series, where Kevin Conroy provides the iconic voice of Bruce Wayne and Batman. And Mark Hamill makes one of his early tenures as the Joker, among others. And I tend to, I wanted to draw attention to it on our show because I thought it granted a new lease on Batman that a lot of the live action films maybe don't focus on as much, which I found interesting. And so in the story, Batman has, there's a new love interest of sorts named Andrea Beaumont. And there's a new villain called, of course, the Phantasm. And a lot of stuff happens, and it's really cool. So go watch it. It's on HBO Max. And I will say a spoiler warning is pretty much incumbent in all of our episodes, but there are a couple really big twists in this one. So I would highly recommend anyone that's interested in seeing this film to watch it before they listen to our discussion on it. So with that being said, what were your thoughts about the film, guys?
Zach shall go first.
Okay. So this is a movie I had heard a lot about, but I'd never actually, at least that I can recall, I don't remember actually sitting down and watching it. And this is a movie that has a big reputation, at least among fans of Batman. People call it the actual best Batman movie. They say that it's better than the theatrical versions. They say that it's amazing and it has all these twists and turns and great character development. And I was not really that impressed with it. I thought it was okay. I thought it was up to the standard of Batman the Animated Series, which is a very good animated show, but to me, it felt like just another episode of a kid's TV show. I think the animation is pretty limited, which does hinder the movie. I like the look of the animation, but the facial animation especially is very limited, which I think hinders some of the more emotional scenes and kind of the emotional arcs of the movie. And I don't really like the way that the narrative is laid out. Essentially, it functions as current plotline, lengthy flashback. Current plotline, lengthy flashback. And in a 70-minute movie, if you have enough flashbacks, it becomes jarring enough that you're not really sure which story is meant to be the point of the movie, and that really threw me off. So I'm not going to call it a bad movie, and I understand why people like it. But it's definitely not my favorite Batman movie, and I think that I would probably give it just a 3 out of 5.
Okay, fair enough.
Crazy. It's crazy. I really like this animation style a lot. It's one of my favorite animation styles ever, probably. And I'm just going to say that out the get-go. However, I'm not a huge fan of this, of trying to use this sort of medium to tell this complicated story. And Zach had definitely touched on a lot of the parts of it. But I feel like I don't feel like it was that. At first I thought it was jarring with kind of going with the flashbacks and stuff, but I kind of understood what I understood generally what was going on, and I felt like it fit the pacing relatively well. It was something I had to get used to. But I feel like that it's just, I don't know, there's just a lot of sequences that were just so cliche children's show, like, the explosions and the fighting scenes and stuff were so, like, they felt so inserted. They felt like they had to put those in there to make it interesting, which I didn't think so at all. I felt like the story stands just fine on its own. I would want to read about the story. I would see a musical on the story, but like just seeing like an animated feature tell it, I just felt like there was so many different parts where it was limited, but I feel like the story itself was really interesting, and I feel like there was a lot of compelling plot points that really meshed well together that wouldn't normally, and I feel like Batman's character has a lot of that potential they really accessed a lot of, so I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay, also fair. I, of course, love this movie, and something I maybe should have thought of before I put together my roster for this season was, maybe not choosing all of my favorite films of all time, where pretty much everything I chose was a 5 out of 5 or close to it. And well, I gave this a 4.5 out of 5, which typically, in my experience, is when I really love something that I want to give it a 5 out of 5, but I know it's not a perfect film, so I can't. So under that logic, it really might be even closer to a 4 or even a 3.5 if I were to really be honest about many of the things you guys cited.
Yeah.
But I love it. I agree with Zach, what you said about the animation. I don't know if you use this term in your review or not, but I think stiff describes it pretty well. The facial expressions are limited, and if you don't really buy into that style, and if you don't like Kevin Conroy, then that is understandably going to be a huge detractor for you.
Yeah.
I think what really makes this movie for me, though, is I feel like this is the only Batman movie where Bruce is really like treated as a human being after the death of his parents. And I know we see that vulnerability and that brooding and this inner struggle around the tragedy the night his parents died. We see that in pretty much everything. And his most emotional moments come when he basically decides to be Batman. And but what I really appreciated about this was that it was, in a sense, it was an origin story, because it definitely references that, but it doesn't feel the need to retell that night. And it does a really good job of recontextualizing Bruce's humanity with Andrea, as opposed to just continually harping on like this struggle between adhering to his parents' wishes and the struggles that come with being Gotham's knight, I suppose. And so for me, and the other thing that really sets this apart from other Batman films is the detective work. I think that Mitchell, I totally agree that some of the fight scenes feel inserted, like where there's like this random guy with a cash box like in the middle of the road, and Bruce just has to like run out and stop him from being robbed. Even the setting of that is kind of bizarre.
I thought he was meant to be like a street performer, but he has nothing to perform with. He's just a man in a coat with a box of money.
Yeah.
Get him.
Yeah, I don't even... I want to say that was outside the World's Fair in like the second flashback, but I'm not even certain of that. So moments like that do feel a little inserted, but at the same time, I did really appreciate that most of the time Batman was in the suit, he wasn't just like punching a thug or something. Like there's a lot of interaction and twists and turns and whatever, and he's piecing together the parts of the story as it goes along. Zach, you alluded to this in your general thoughts, but I wanted to sort of open the floor to Mitchell as well about the chronology and editing. This is not told chronologically exactly. No. There are a number of flashbacks, and they are long and not necessarily like a one scene and then back. And so it is like a little, the waters get a little muddy perhaps. And so I wanted to ask, Zach, you already started on this, but what did you guys think of the chronology, and is there a way that you would present this more or less chronological than it is now that might preserve the twists? Or would you be willing to even sacrifice the twist if you think a truly chronological presentation would aid the flow of the story at large? Big question, I know.
I would be able to... So the thing with me is, I think we have seen Bruce Wayne fall in love with a new woman, so many times in Batman films. Even at this point, we've seen it twice. So I feel like I personally would be fine with dropping the flashbacks altogether, because what we haven't really seen is we haven't seen Batman struggling with an old flame in the films at this point, and I think that's a lot more interesting. So I would rather this have been like drop the flashbacks and have him meet up with Andrea as this old flame, do like a Casablanca type thing potentially, make it longer so the twists have more room to breathe, and have sort of that past come out through Batman's investigation to kind of put more emphasis on the detective work and him actually making those connections in his head. Because I feel like the flashbacks take away from the narrative flow, they take away from the pace, they take away from the investment of the viewer. They also, occasionally they just they have this whole flashback thing where the person who killed Andrea's father was actually the Joker before he became the Joker, which I think is an interesting idea, but I don't really think the movie does anything with it, and that reveal doesn't really elevate anything. It's just kind of, oh my goodness, okay, and then it doesn't really change much of anything in the way the characters interact with each other. I feel like those flashbacks really take more from the movie than they give it, so I would just drop them all together.
Okay.
Wow.
I don't have as much of a handle on like chucking things out and putting things in as Zach does in terms of like films, but I think you can keep the flashbacks in there, but I do think you could probably sacrifice some of the twists besides the big one at the end. I guess I kind of disclosure, I kind of like figured that out.
Yeah,
towards the beginning.
I kind of think it's obvious.
It wasn't that, you know.
Fair enough.
But anyway, I don't know. I mean, I feel like there was too much emphasis on the fact that they were flashbacks, but also I feel like they're used kind of not necessarily as a cop out, but like kind of like in a way where they can't really portray a whole lot with animation. Like you can't really just instantly cut back and then, you know, because all the characters kind of look the same. There's a lot less that you can change in general. So I feel like if they didn't have the blurry pool thing transition, you know, then you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know it's a transition. And also, there's only like so many settings also, and I feel like the world of the future place is like the only place that doesn't like the only place that drastically changes. Like the cemetery looks exactly the same. So I feel like there's a lot of revisitation to the same areas, and I know that's integral to the, you know, development of Beaumont and, you know, Phantasm or whatever, but you know, I don't know. I don't know exactly what I'd do to change it. I feel like you could still keep them in there, maybe as I don't know. I feel like they're happening too often. Honestly, if the film was just longer in general, I feel like that would solve a lot of the problems that the flashbacks cause. I feel like, but then, you know, then you'd have the continued issues with the animation and things like that Zach had mentioned. So, you know, it's a give or take, but I mean, I'm fine with the flashbacks. I don't think getting rid of them entirely would necessarily, you know, I don't think it would do the film justice based on the story it was telling. And I feel like there's a lot of plot points that were specifically put in certain places where, you know, it was too integral. So I don't know. I'm more or less indifferent, as I usually am.
All right. I did want to hit on Zach's point where he said, you said you thought revisiting an old flame was a lot more interesting than Batman falling in love. And I totally agree with that. I think that's what makes Andrea as interesting as she is. I think the reason that I personally would probably keep most, if not all, of the flashbacks is that not only is Andrea important and set aside from characters like Talia al Ghul or Selena Kyle, she's not only an old flame, but she's also the only one of those three that ever makes Bruce really consider putting down the cowl, like forever, and entirely revisiting his purpose in life. And all right, I should revise that, because recently DC Comics kind of did that with Catwoman, but the point remains. In the films, I should say, but I for one found that really convincing. And Zach once a little while ago, Zach said I had the most profiling letterboxed ever, because my four favorites are all sort of like romantic films. And I was looking at my lineup for this season, and almost all of them are like romantic films. And here I am talking about why I love Bruce Wayne in this movie, because he's a romantic character more so than he is in the other ones. But so maybe then what I'm trying to do here is concede a personal preference point rather than a critical point. So I do think at points the flashbacks are a little distracting and jarring. And this is my third or fourth watch, so I didn't really have trouble following it, but I definitely did in earlier watches. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a note.
Christian, can I ask?
Another thing I wanted to... Sure.
I just want to ask you something really quickly. I understand that this is tied pretty much directly into the animated series. Did you watch the animated series leading up to this film before seeing it? Because for me at least,
I'm not certain.
Because for me at least, an issue came with the fact that this movie starts so suddenly that I don't really think you have much of a chance to relate to or get to know this version of Batman or Gotham City. It kind of starts like it's just another episode of the show, and therefore if you haven't seen the show in a while or you haven't seen the movie before,
or you've never seen the series at all ever,
yeah, you're kind of left with
I agree with that.
I guess this is Batman. I'm not really attached to him, but I
don't know,
guess it is.
I played hours and hours of the games with Kevin Conroy's voice, so when I heard his voice again, I was like, that's my boy.
Well, maybe that helps then, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's totally a fair point. I have seen all of the animated series and the other film. That was a big watch for me during lockdown. But I can't remember exactly if I watched this first or after season 1. I think I must have seen at least some of season 1 of the show before seeing this. And like Mitchell, I had played all the games where Conroy voices Batman.
Alfred.
And I definitely did have some grounding in this Batman and this Gotham. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a terrific point, actually. If there's one way to make this film longer to sort of let the twist breathe, as you guys mentioned, I think it would be to sort of give the viewer more of an exposition of this Batman and this Gotham and this setting.
I totally
overall.
agree.
I think that's well said. And I also wanted to touch on the animation, both its shortcomings and its good aspects. And I personally tend to like it. I think stylistically there's something to 2D animation that isn't always captured in computer animation. Mm-hmm. I would take this over Minions any day of the week. And I wanted to sort of ask you guys, computer versus 2D, and specifically, what about this film works and doesn't work for you with regards to the drawing?
I'll go first.
All right. It's only right. I've gone first quite a bit.
Yes. I feel like the settings and the dark parts, when there's an emphasis on lighting, I feel like those are like the coolest shots ever. Like this totally feels like Gotham 100%. Like I'm completely convinced. I feel like the characters have a good general differences. Like if they're in the mob, then they're really close. They look really like similar. So it's very easy to decipher who they are and their accents and everything like that. And then Bruce always has that very square, commanding, masculine presence. Definitely looks like how I would imagine him. And, and like Joker's obviously really colored and different things like that. He's got he stands out really easily. So I feel like the colors and the settings and just the general differences between how the characters look, and Beaumont's makeup and hair and things like that. I feel like those differences are extremely emphasized, and the similarities and the darks are really similar. So I feel like those are the best aspects.
Mm-hmm. I'll agree that I like the settings. I don't think this is not my favorite version of Gotham. Mitchell and Christian know this already, but my favorite Gotham has got to be Batman Returns. I love everything about that movie. I think it gets Batman perfect, or at least the kind of Batman I like perfect. This film, though, in terms of realizing Gotham, does some interesting things. I like how red Gotham is. The sky is always this sort of burnt orange color, whether day or night, that I think gives it a very kind of chaotic, brooding feel. I like how vertical it is, which feels like it's inspired by Tim Burton's Batman, because at least initially the show was kind of a continuation of that story, at least vaguely originally. So I like how vertical it is. I like the stress shadows. I like the sort of, I don't know what was used to draw the backgrounds, but I do like, it almost looks like charcoal or pastels. Like I like how soft the backgrounds are in comparison to the hard lines of the characters. And I would say, even though I think the characters are kind of weak in their movements and their designs, I will agree with Mitchell that everybody has a definite shape. There's definite character in the animation, and I think that the violence is really well rendered. Funnily enough, I think the explosions, I think the punches and kicks, it's clear where the budget for movement went for this film.
Yeah.
And I think it's money well spent.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with both of you. I don't have much to add. So on to the next thing, the twist. This is your last warning, listener. If you haven't seen this film, turn back now. So the biggest twist in this is, of course, the reveal that Andrea is the Phantasm, not her father, not the scummy little politician dude she's hanging out with that worked for her father. Yeah, that guy. So my question is, I'm not totally surprised that one or both of you may have figured it out on your first viewing, but did it work for you? Did it do anything to enhance Andrea's character or the remainder of the film for you, or was it just kind of like, oh, okay?
I think it was probably one of the best aspects in general of the film. I feel like it really does it really added a lot of value to previous scenes that didn't mean a whole lot. I mean, the fact that I was kind of figuring it out is because there were so many, it was so well, like, integrated. I don't want to keep saying that, but I can't think of any other words now. And I feel like, you know, they keep returning to the same settings where Bruce and her met up, and I thought that concept, you know, just integrating the romance with the vengeance is generally a very difficult task, I would feel like, when you're trying to write a story like this. So I feel like that was really well done, and it obviously makes perfect sense that it was her. So you know, I don't have any problems with it. I wasn't you know, treating it like a big surprise or anything, but I thought it I thought it definitely worked, and I do think it added to her character. It definitely it almost elevates her tragedy to the same level as Bruce's in a lot of ways. So yeah, I think that's really cool. I think that might be the coolest aspect of this. So
I personally think it's a pretty weak twist.
Whoa!
It didn't surprise me, and partially because I think the red herrings they're trying to build are pretty weak. I think I never even considered it being her father. That would have been more of a surprise to me, if I'm honest. And Arthur, who I want to note, I think gave one of the best voice performances in the film. I really liked that guy's vocal performance. I never thought it was Arthur, because I didn't see Arthur as having any motivation to do it. Pretty much, I kind of predicted immediately that it was Andrea, for the same reason that a lot of people like to point out that people would probably be able to figure out that Bruce Wayne was Batman. Oh, this person just happened to show up, and then there's a new character on the scene. I wonder who it could be. So I think me knowing almost immediately that she was the Phantasm almost subtracted not only from the twist, but from her character. Because I was just sort of thinking, like, all right, when are we going to get to the thing? Like, come on, the clock's ticking. I'm waiting for that you betrayed me moment. Like, come on.
Oh, Zach, it hurts. It hurts. Though I will say, kudos to Andrea for actually using her brain and being smart enough to realize Bruce was Batman, like, really early on.
Oh, yeah.
All it took was for her to see Batman at the Wayne grave, and then, boom, she's smarter than everyone else in Gotham, I guess.
Apparently.
Calm down, son. She's just a drawing.
Shut up. I do think she's a terrific character. I do think she's probably the best thing about this movie. Damn it, Mitchell, you made me lose my train of thought.
Sorry.
What did Zach say? Zach was talking about how he didn't think the twist was good, and I was so upset. I think the twist is great. I don't think I ever thought it was her father either on my first viewing. And once I keep forgetting his name. The
Arthur
Reeves. Arthur Reeves.
Yeah, that guy. Once he sort of falls into the hysteria that the Joker puts him into, I pretty quickly put together it wasn't him. But I was still pretty surprised the first time when they reveal it's Andrea. And I don't know. I agree more so with Mitchell than Zach. Let's say I do think that her tragedy being sort of analogous to Bruce's is really important, and portraying her as sort of this vengeful killer is another really important decision that grounds Bruce and Batman as a more human character than I think other iterations may have. And I know I keep saying that over and over, but that really is what brings this up for me is seeing Batman as a person rather than just a symbol all the time, and seeing the tragedy between the weight Bruce feels between those two sides of his obligation, I guess. While we're on this, just quickly, Andrea as a character, do you find her more or less engaging as Batman's other love interests? Do you find her more or less engaging as Batman's other villains? And would you at all be interested in seeing the character followed up on in another medium, be it live action or in the comics or whatever?
I think she left basically no impact on me. I understand that. I think I remember her
Zach,
showing up.
Throw me a vote.
I think I remember her showing up in the show at some point as well after the film.
Nope.
Really? I thought there was a thing where like, oh well.
Maybe Batman Beyond, but I haven't seen that yet.
Might be in Batman Beyond. I'm not sure. But I mean, I think she's an interesting character to introduce to a long-running show. Going along with my thing that I think this feels more like an episode of the show than an independent film, which maybe we'll talk about, I'm not sure. But I don't, outside of that, this isn't really a character that I'm itching to see in a live action adaptation or to see meet up with Robert Pattinson's Batman. I think this is very much
okay.
I think this is very much the animated series character that's like, oh, look at this new character we pushed for the animated series, other than Harley Quinn, I guess. And I think that's kind of the bounds in which the Phantasm exists and where Andrea Beaumont exists, and I'm not really all that bothered with her maybe appearing outside of it.
No Kristen Stewart adaptation.
No, I don't think Kristen Stewart could play Andrea Beaumont.
Okay.
I mean, I would say Amy Adams, but she's already playing another character, so.
I don't know. I feel like this stands. I feel like it stands alone as a conclusion more than entirely holistically on its own, because it does obviously feel like it's a part of the animated series in some respects, but of which I have not seen. But but I do feel like they ended it on a fine note. I feel like they told just enough about her. So the only thing I could see would be a live action adaptation, but even then, I don't know how that would turn out. I feel like there is enough substance there for an adaptation, but I feel like it'd have to be really selective with it. But in terms of like an actual love interest, I haven't really seen. I don't want to like be too generalizing, I guess, but I don't want to paint a broad brush. I don't know idioms, but
just say it.
I don't want to say. I don't think I've seen a love interest that's been portrayed extremely well in animation before. Pretty much ever, and I feel like there's a lot of human connection that's missing when it's being drawn. And I don't. I'm sorry, Frozen, but
you don't need to apologize to Frozen.
But I don't know. I mean, okay, Beauty and the Beast. Okay, we had an episode about Beauty and the Beast.
I was waiting for you to say it.
I'm sorry. Okay, but there is but that's more. It's more about. It's got that Disney magic. You know what I'm saying?
That's a fairy tale. It's not
a
drama,
right?
Yeah.
It's not a drama. That's a perfect. Thank you, Zach. It's not like a fleshed out dramatic. There's sad parts and happy parts. You know, I feel like the Beauty and the Beast is very linear. There's a lot of time spent on the music aspects of it and the magical parts of it, but that does not mean that Belle and the Beast have an amazing fleshed out like relationship, because it's a fairy tale. It's not what it's about. And if you're trying to portray a complicated relationship in animation, there's a lot that you're naturally going to be missing out on. And I feel like maybe an adaptation could emphasize that more, maybe not, but I feel like the animation in this case did a good job at least focusing more on her personal character development rather than their actual relationship, and Bruce's character development, obviously. So I feel like focusing on their individual developments was better than trying to focus on trying to muster up a relationship out of nothing. We kind of just had to go off of an assumption that they had a really powerful love for each other when Bruce just has that straight face half the time. But
yeah, no. I think that's fair. And one of the things that gives Andrea a sense of novelty to me is that she is a new character and that she's not an adaptation of a comic or like an alternate universe version of Selena or something. Like, she is a new character, and she is introduced, and then her arc is sort of completed by the end of the story. Right. And I think that's nice and refreshing, and something that not to sound too much like Zach, but something that franchises should think about doing more often. Like there's often a lot more space for new faces and new characters and new risks that sometimes the bigger superhero brands or Star Wars or what have you are more reluctant to do. But I'm very happy that they did so here. I will mention that currently DC is writing a limited Batman Catwoman comic series in which Andrea returns to Gotham, and I've been reading it. I'm about 5 issues in, and I can't help but say that I feel like a little bit disappointed because Andrea's not really a focus of it. It's more about like Batman and Catwoman's relationship, and there are a lot of chronology displacements. Like it fast forwards to Selina as an older woman a lot, and Andrea is like really very much in the background, and the story is difficult to follow, and it kind of left me feeling like I'm gonna keep reading it, but it made me feel like this was maybe a little cheapened as a very whole beginning and end to a character. So in that sense, even though I think she's terrific here, I agree. I don't feel like a pressing need for more,
and like
because I really like what was included here.
Sorry, and like what you had mentioned, Christian, you feel like they're a lot more human here, and I feel like Selina Kyle is kind of a caricature in a lot of ways. She has very emphasized archetypes that make her a very easy catch. I don't know for Batman, I guess.
No, yeah.
But I mean,
no, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I just feel like it's so hard to flesh out really interesting dialogue with Selina Kyle versus Andrea Beaumont, based on how I know Catwoman from what I've seen. So.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, Catwoman's very much a femme fatale, and so beyond the whole tension between Batman being a crime fighter and her not always being good, there's not much else. And yeah, I think that's true. Okay, last question. We are running a little short on time, but I wanted to hit this quickly. Kevin Conroy's Batman. Where approximately would you place him amongst the live-action Batman? I know I'm forcing you to sort of rank or compare things that aren't really entirely comparable. But I wanted to throw it out there. Let's try to keep these answers short so that we can get to our bits, but I wanted to hear your thoughts.
I think he's... Go, Zach, go.
Okay, I would say probably in the middle. I think Keaton and Affleck are at the top. Clooney and Kilmer are at the bottom. Conroy, to me... To be honest, his vocal performance doesn't really thrill me. He sounds a lot like Batman, but he sounds like Batman that you hear in a commercial. To me, it's a little too stylized, and it doesn't really feel like a character. It feels like a caricature.
I feel like a lot of other DC characters are stylized in the way that they talk anyway. So I prefer this voice over Ben Affleck. But otherwise, I pretty much agree with your rankings, Zach.
I know that's kind of an unpopular choice. I like Affleck. I like him as Batman. I think he's a good Batman.
Yeah,
at least in BVS. In Justice League, I think he's pretty poor, but that whole movie is pretty poor. So.
Yeah. He's like, oh, I'm rich. And I'm like, that one line just honestly I don't know why. Yes. It just kills me. But I mean, like Christian said, it's not really super comparable, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I give up. Kevin Conroy's really good. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think so too. And I wasn't going to dig on Affleck, Zach, but now that you're forcing me to do it, I think that the sort of robotic in-suit Batman voice insert thing is a total cop-out. And I mean, it works in the context of the film, sure, but I don't think it deserves to be heralded as something that Affleck's performance brings to the table. Like that is a triumph of editing, perhaps, but to me it is not a triumph of acting.
There's more to performance than voice, is all I'm gonna say. But
well, I think Kevin Conroy's voice portrays more of a broken person trying to be this vigilante than Ben Affleck's entire performance. And
I disagree, but I'm not really that invested in this character. I'm invested in Batman Returns. I'm invested in Batman and Batman Returns. I'll defend those movies to my death. Everything else I can pretty much take it or leave it.
Here's why Batman and Robin is the best Batman movie. George Clooney #1.
High freeze. I'm Batman.
Oh gosh.
Okay, continue
Okay, well,
with
at least
your
we can
plan,
all agree
Christian.
that Clooney's bringing up the rear.
I think Kilmer
tier
brings
one,
up my
I'm not gonna
personal
rank
rear,
him,
but-
but
What? God.
oh my goodness, I really like Kilmer.
I
okay,
like Michael
we can't.
Keaton.
We don't have time for that.
Michael
Yeah, yeah.
Keaton. I like Michael Keaton.
Tier 1 is Keaton, Bale, and Conroy. I love Conroy. I think he's terrific.
I agree with Christian.
And we're just gonna leave it at that because
agree with
if I
Christian's
don't,
tier
we're
one.
gonna keep talking forever.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, we have bits.
Magical
what's
cinema.
First
Oh,
is Week in Review, actually.
I
We
meant
always
we
try
can
to put-
review.
We always try to put Cinema Tour before Week in Review.
I'm just so excited to focus on whatever Christian watched. I'm so excited.
Okay, well, first we'll talk
Silence.
about what we watched.
Okay.
And again, I'm going to bend the rules because I have a new
Go
short
ahead.
film out
Okay.
on the City Mist Productions YouTube channel.
Yes.
It's a Western, or at least kind of a Western pastiche, very inspired by spaghetti Westerns, movies like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. The Wild Bunch was a big influence, like Sam Peckinpah. It's kind of like a condensation of all my favorite kind of Western tropes and ideas, directed with what I would hope is at least my own flair. And it has an original score by my brother, Jake, which I think is a really cool 3 bits of music. So I'd really urge you to check it out if you're at all interested in Westerns or perhaps even things that I make. You can find it on the City Mist Productions YouTube channel.
Amazing. I guess I'll go. I saw The Longest Day, which is just like Hollywood just throwing absolutely everything it possibly can at a World War II movie and making it the longest movie, as the people call it, because it's 3 hours long. It's more of an epic than anything, and it really talks about a lot of the strategies and shows. It's very what's it called? Neutral when it talks about each side, like the British, the French, the Germans, and the Americans. They use, all the actors speak the languages of their countries of origin. They choose all the actors fit perfectly where they are. Besides the top billed ones, probably John Wayne is probably like my least favorite performance. He's like, "What's going on here? Why is this happening? We gotta charge that hill." And it's like, "I'm done with you, John." Robert
I'm done with you,
Mitchum is
Pilgrim.
kind of, yeah. Robert Mitchum's like, okay, they didn't show him as much, but yeah, no, I really like when they throw a big budget at stuff and really try to make things really authentic, and it's kind of like a docudrama in a lot of ways, which is really unusual for films that were coming out during the 60s. But it does have those tropes where it focuses on certain soldiers and, try to make them really interesting, and then they die and you're supposed to be sad, but like you really just care about the conflict at hand. So there's a lot of focus on the conflict at hand, though. So I gave it a 4.5, I think. Yeah, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. I did. And I think that's a great rating for it. So if you're at all interested in World War II movies, it's definitely one of the best of that genre and of that time period, and I really recommend it, especially if you're interested in D-Day. And it's the best D-Day presentation. I'm not going to say besides Saving Private Ryan, I think is the best portrayal of D-Day. So get off my back, Steven
right.
Spielberg.
Okay, and then it was my turn.
Yes.
Oh, in the last episode I hosted, we talked about Marriage Story, and we talked about a little bit about a scene in which Adam Driver sings "Being Alive." So I'd like to talk a little bit about "Being Alive." I've been listening to the song a lot lately. I'm not sure why, but I just kind of downloaded it on a whim, and it's really, really clever. This character named Robert is singing about his perception of love, someone to hold you too close, to hurt you too deep, to sit in your chair and ruin your sleep. And he's got like this very much like downcast look on love. But by the end of the song, he's asking somebody crowd me with love, etc., etc. And it's a nice arc, and it's a terrific scene in Marriage Story, but it's also just a great song. I haven't seen Company, which is the Sondheim musical that it's from, but I fully intend to, and I requested the DVD from our local library. So perhaps that'll be in a future Week in Review. But,
Support your
for
local
now,
library.
Yes.
Indeed. For now, just maybe listen to the song and think about what it means to you. It's a good one.
Yeah. Now it's time for Christian's Magical Cinema Tour.
Oh, dear.
Roll up for the mystery tour. Christian, what have you been watching lately?
What have I been watching lately? I'm definitely not pulling up my Letterboxd right now.
You saw what's it called? The 1945.
Oh, should
What's it called?
Anchors Away.
Anchors
Yeah.
Away.
Yeah, what did you think of
I
Anchors
saw it.
Away? You're on a real
Yeah.
Gene Kelly kick recently, aren't you?
I really am. I got a bunch more from our local library today,
my gosh.
actually. So this will turn into the Gene Kelly segment. But I thought it was great. I give it a 4 out of 5. My review is 4 words long. It's Gene Kelly can't lose. So take what you may from that. Also starring Frank Sinatra and Katherine Grayson, who are both very, very good. And it's fun. It's pretty obvious that Frank Sinatra is not as good a dancer as Gene Kelly in the one dance number that they actually share. And the film kind of like stretches itself to separate Frank and Gene so that Frank can sing more and Gene can dance more. And it's a little obvious. But if you know what to expect from something that's a highly stylized musical and whatever, it's fun. And there's a really terrific Tom and Jerry dream sequence thingy
That's
where
what
he's
that's
dancing
from.
with Jerry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's super fun, and that made the whole movie for me. So 4 out of 5. I had fun.
Well, there you go.
Okay,
And then there were
one more.
Rundowns.
Then there were rundowns.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not even gonna say it. Mitchell-
Mitchell
are
is
you ready?
right. You sounded so disappointed. I'm sorry. It's a
All
part
right.
of the thing.
All right, gentlemen.
They can't all be diamonds. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Jiu-Jitsu.
3 out of 5.
Kevin Conroy is Batman.
3 out of 5.
Dreamy Warner Brothers transitions.
3 out of 5.
Zach Garrigus as Alfred Pennyworth.
4 out of 5.
World of the future if Elon Musk bought Gotham.
4 out of 5.
Animated 90s Bat Computer.
3 out of 5.
Left with Dad. Too young. Need time.
2 out of 5.
A crisp 76-minute runtime.
2 out of 5.
Mark Hamill doing his thing.
3 out of 5.
Batman is a simp.
3 out of 5.
Batman being blamed for everything and losing everyone he loves.
3 out of 5.
Andrea also losing everything she loves.
3 out of 5.
Heart lockets.
3 out of 5.
The Joker as a supporting character.
3 out of 5.
Explosions.
3 out of 5.
Not hurting so bad anymore.
4 out of 5.
Prequel to Titanic.
4 out of 5.
Your Angel of Death awaits.
And 2 out of 5.
Batcave House of Wisdom.
3 out
One
of 5.
second.
I think we're just going to leave it right there. Nice, safe cut
I guess so.
Man,
Wow.
it's been a fun episode. I'm a little sad that Zach doesn't like Andrea.
Well, Zach
So-
tends
so
to
am
trash
I.
on things you like, and Christian
No.
trashes on
Yes.
things Zach likes, and
This is true.
It all
This
works
is true.
out.
This is
And I'm
true.
here too.
Genuinely, I was hoping to like this because I do like the animated series. I like Batman. Like, I'm not... perhaps I like different aspects of Batman than you, Christian, but I do like Batman. I was hoping to enjoy this more than I did.
As
so I
long
was
as
a
he's
little
thin to
Alright,
you,
alright.
Zach. If he's thin, then he's fine. But if he's a big boy, then that's
Okay.
oppressive.
That has nothing
Yeah.
to do with it, but all right.
Yeah.
You were always wanting Robert Pattinson since you were born.
Yeah, where's that Pattinson quote about conditioning? Huh?
I like Robert Pattinson is a great actor. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with the character. Legitimately, he's a fantastic actor. But I think it's time for me to introduce the next film we'll be talking about.
I do too.
You know what, guys? It's been about a year and a half since this whole COVID thing started. We've been stuck inside for a long time. We're all probably getting pretty bored. I think it's time we went on a vacation. So pack your bags, get in the station wagon, because we're going to my favorite town in the USA, Weirdsville. That's right. Next time, we're going to be talking about Suspiria from 1977, a classic of Italian horror. Now, based on the mixture of sighs and woohoos that you're hearing in this chat, you'll recognize that we have very varying opinions on Italian horror here. So this is probably going to be a doozy. So if you're interested in hearing us talk about Suspiria from 1977, Dario Argento's masterpiece, the original, not the remake, tune in next time.
Let's see who's
Man.
the real Italian here.
For like 2 seconds, I thought we were going to Wally World, and you disappointed me so much.
I want to go to L.A. or New York City.
The only 2 cities in the world. Oh, okay. It's been fun. This has been Cookie Pocket. And this is a podcast about film,
It is.
in case you were wondering.
Yeah.
For Zach and Mitchell, I'm Christian, and I hope you like Andrea as much as I do. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.